Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 30 of B-Road Ballers, the review series for Gran Turismo's selection of smaller and larger, older and newer hot hatches. And in this particular episode we're featuring one of the best, if not the best, lower level and smaller size hot hatches in the game. It's the Volkswagen Polo GTi. This is quite simply a brilliant car on Gran Turismo 6, and for the 450 pp level, and to some extent even up to the 475 pp level, it's one of the most competitive cars, not only in the hot hatch category but also in the game as a whole, especially at the 450 pp level. It is an incredibly quick machine, especially on technical circuits such as the Nürburgring Ring. Now, it's powered by a 1.6 litre turbo engine, it's front-wheel drive, and it's got a pretty decent spec for a slightly lower level, initially anyway, hot hatch. It produces, when fully tuned, 335 horsepower. That's a pretty decent amount of power. It also puts out 253 pound-feet of torque, which for a smaller capacity hot hatch is pretty decent again. It weighs in at just 911 kilos, and thanks to that really low curb weight, puts out 368 horsepower per tonne, which is very good, to say the least. The PP when fully tuned is 492. Now at that level it's still a very good car, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend racing it at the 492 pp level, because once you get up to that kind of pp, you can get significantly more powerful vehicles. It is still a reasonably competitive car at that level, but it starts to fade away due to its lack of top-end shove compared to other cars that you can get at that pp level. As far as price, it costs just under 27,000 credits. So it's pretty well priced for a hot hatch. It's significantly cheaper than some of the larger hot hatches like the Focus, the 147, the Audis, etc. As far as smaller hatches go, to be honest, it's pretty much unrivalled. There are almost no other small hot hatches which can keep up with this around the track. There may be one or two notable exceptions, but on the whole the Polo is pretty generally accepted as being the best small hot hatch on the game. Now, it's not a premium model, which is a shame. You don't get that fully detailed interior, but considering some of the other cars that we have on the game, I can kind of understand why it's not a premium yet. Because as nice as it would be to have a premium Polo, there are other cars which I would much rather have as premiums ahead of this one. In terms of its best use, its best rivals, well, we kind of already touched on its rivals because it doesn't really have any natural rivals, and that's one of the great things about the Polo. Its size actually belies how good a car it actually is, because although it is a very small hot hatch, it has the abilities and performance of some much larger and more powerful hot hatches. So although technically it is a small hot hatch, it's actually more fair to compare it to some of the bigger ones, because most of the smaller hot hatches, such as cars like the Abarth Fiat 500, the Punto of the older shape, the Clio RS, especially the older Clio RS, the Lupo GTi, the older Golf GTi, the Civic of the non-Type R shape, it pretty much dominates all of them, especially obviously if you put it up against K cars, it's going to dominate them as well due to sheer straight line power. And that's the great thing about the Polo. It's almost in a category all of its own, because it has the physical size of technically a Super Mini, but it has the performance of a full-on, full-size hot hatch, such as the Meganes, the Focuses and the Golfs. So it's not hard to see why it's so competitive. In terms of straight line performance, fully tuned you can get it up around 180 miles per hour, 190, that kind of speed, so it's certainly not slow, but there are plenty of hot hatches which can outrun it, which is why I said I wouldn't recommend racing it up around 490 pp. At the 450 pp level and around 475 pp level, the Polo can get around the Nürburgring in well under 7 minutes. So you can understand why it's such a popular choice for that PP level. It's pretty much untouchable, considering that there are some 500 PP or even higher cars that can't keep up with that. This is almost, in its own way, kind of an OP vehicle. It's a lot faster than on paper spec would suggest. Now, overall, would I recommend the car? And who would I recommend it for? And when would I recommend that you use it? Well, fairly obviously, I would, of course, recommend buying the car. I'd recommend it for people who are... Well, actually, there are kind of two categories. I'd recommend it for people who are looking for, obviously, a good small hot hatch, because, as we mentioned, it's pretty much the best option for that. It's kind of the obvious option, but the best nonetheless. And I would recommend it to people who are looking for a vehicle which is great for low PP racing. As I mentioned, especially for 450 and 475, but also potentially in between, say 460 or 425 even, going lower. It can compete very well at those levels. As far as the handling, well, that's its best attribute. The front-wheel drive chassis, combined with the fact that it's such a small, light car, but at the same time reasonably wide in comparison to its height and length, just make it fantastic through the corners. So, overall, if you're looking for a great small hot hatch, the Polo is definitely a great choice for you. And, overall, that's it for this episode. So I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.